Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, we are talking about the unsuspecting ways an enemy will attack. And we're going to break this down in terms of the types of battles that some people have had, whether it was with a relative, with a fellow coworker, the types of issues that arise nationally as well as internationally. Oftentimes in the church, we will say the enemy is out to kill, steal, and destroy. But what exactly is it that the enemy will come up with? When I wrote Know Your Enemy, the Christian's Critic, I did touch on various topics in terms of how the enemy will play a game or two on some folks. And the thing that just disturbs us when we study subject matter like this is the fact that the enemy can attack a person who's unsuspecting using the things that he or she least suspects. Case in point, when you're talking about a fight, an enemy fight internationally, you may have images of people at war using bombs, right? But oh no, there are those types of fights that people have where they will use technology against a person they don't like, they don't trust. They will use technology to get someone to give up some information or to behave, if you will. So there's the sudden virus, there's the attack on the software programs, there's the information that is taken from a person's account. And some of you all know the rest because, well, all of us at some point have been that collateral damage when it came to technology. Whether they hacked into your social media accounts or they figured out a way to take some money out your bank account or they used your identity or whatever the case may be. Now, we also have those types of individuals who they orchestrate plans of attack using animals. Oh, yes. This has been going on for a long time. Long before most of us were even thought about, brought into this world. Animals can be used to create all sorts of chaos. Animals as sentinels can be used as bioterrorism agents. Simply put. And if you are asleep, you don't recognize this sort of thing. If you are that one that believes that everything is conspiracy because it doesn't conform with the way you think or doesn't align with what you suspect or whatever else, then my friend, your eyes are very much closed and then you can stay asleep. Some examples of this sort of thing can occur when you least expect it. Case in point, when salmonella situations started to increase in great number many years back, folks just thought, oh, well, it was just, a foodborne illness. Things happen. No big deal. The sources of how this sort of thing comes about, usually you do not find that information out, not with a simple search. There are those, though, that were former workers who were close to these attacks that will every now and again give up information. But for some of them, they unfortunately lost their lives telling the truth. Simply put, telling the truth. Cattle can be used, horses, sheep, birds, mosquitoes, rodents, pigs can be used as bioterrorism agents. Don't sleep now. This isn't far-fetched and this isn't me just coming up with something. It's very much real. And this isn't about a movie or something that, one has watched. When I thought about these sorts of things, I couldn't help but think about the increase of viruses over the years and the time frame at which they happen. And I think that it's quite convenient that when some of this stuff happens and it makes major news, there's always something happening behind the scenes, something that you got to dig and dig some more to find out what's really going on. What's the real news, you see? That's why you get some individuals who'll say things like, oh, that's fake news. Yeah, in a way it is, because it's broadcast. I mean, it's real news, yes, but it's fake because that's not really where your attention should be. But somebody's going to orchestrate, or some group's going to orchestrate a plan so that you're focused on this news over here when you really are supposed to be paying attention to recent laws that have passed, how your money is being allocated, where the tax money is going, following the money trail. See, you're supposed to be over here. Come on. You're supposed to be paying attention to the resources where your government is spending money, where your government is allowing certain people to show up and show out in this country, where your government is coming up with a plan to get whoever elected, you see. But if I'm over here paying attention to the foolishness that's happening, where it's so great to the point where it's killing people, I'm not paying attention to what's going on behind my back. Until for some of you all, it's too late. Because sometimes these things that take place with government, there's 30 days or 60 days, there's 90 days, there's 120 days or what have you before something is enacted. Something takes place. And if you were asleep, if you were over there paying attention to the celebrity who passed away, paying attention to the next virus that took somebody out, you end up missing out on the opportunity to circumvent some things. You miss out on the opportunity to protest. You miss out on the opportunity to expose some people, places, and things that are attacking, that are taking your rights away. So the enemy comes up with yet another way to impact, to affect, to bring down a fellow enemy. And when you are that one who's once again not paying attention, you don't see the war. See, some individuals have even said that this is a war. This is something that they're telling us one thing, but we know differently. You have scientists, you have researchers, you have doctors, you have all sorts of folks who do the research. They run the tests and they're like, wait a minute, there's a pattern here. There's something that's fishy. We're looking at all of our records here and we're seeing that this didn't happen in the way that they're telling us. We got all sorts of ways that the enemy plays a game or two. We got all sorts of ways that we can fight too an enemy. And first and foremost is to expose an enemy, to see things for what they really are. Call war. Come on. Oh, people, they're going to panic. They're already panicking. They're already acting up. They're already grabbing up everything they possibly can. Food has been attacked and will continue to be attacked. That is one of those ways the enemy will get close to some folks to get some things accomplished. Once again, killing, stealing from, and destroying. And the enemy knows that, hey, Americans, for instance, love their meats. While you're sitting up there thinking it's going to be a bomb that attacks a building or something that's going to suddenly be thrown out into a crowd and cause a massive deaths. And then meanwhile, that thing that you put in your cabinet or that thing that you're about to cook or that thing that you got over there at the local market, or you went overseas and you ate that thing, and they seeing you coming, and they don't like your kind, and you thought that they had your back and they really didn't. And now you're sick. And now that sickness is the type of sickness that when you get in the presence of some other folks, they're sick as well. I'm telling you, the enemy's clever. He puts some people up to doing all sorts of things. Let's talk about that enemy of a man or woman, for instance, when it comes to a relationship, because we're going to go from bioterrorism agents to now we're going to talk about just a simple scenario, for instance, where you're minding your own business, living your life. Okay. You're feeling good and your relationship looks like it's doing pretty well. But then there's this new person who shows up at the workplace or shows up at your doorstep or somebody introduces you to. And then the next thing you know, your world is totally turned upside down and sideways. Was that person strategically placed in your life? In some cases, especially when it comes to national and international leaders, that person is strategically placed in your life. Now, for others, we know that it's a little far-fetched to think that one of the relatives would strategically have this individual show up in your life. But then again, maybe. But let's just say that it's the demonic. It's the demonic who you're doing so well in your life. And the demonic knows that, you got that blood covering of Jesus and so forth, and decides to just wage war on you. Wage war on you for any number of reasons. And then on top of that, what upsets some folks is that God allows it. God allows it. In all thy getting, get some understanding. In all thy getting, you're going to need some perseverance. Why, oh Lord, would you allow this to happen? Job, he had those questions too. And there comes a season where some folks, yes, you were riding high. You were doing quite well. But now things are starting to decline. Now there's this enemy that's showing up and showing out. You're connecting the dots and you're realizing that that person that came into your life is nothing more than like a bioterrorism agent. This person shows up in your life and brings a disease of jealousy, brings a disease of all sorts of lies and secrets, brings a disease that takes from you. You see how the enemy plays a game or two? Once again, he sits back or she sits back and they say, this is how it's going to take place, whether it's in the spiritual realm or in the natural. We are going to go after that child of God because you praising the Lord too much, or you worshiping the Lord too much, or you're reading the word too much, or whatever too much is to someone or something. And then for some of you all, you say, okay, I've gone through something like this, or I'm about to come out of this thing. What are the benefits for having gone through a war of sorts with an enemy? I'll tell you, the benefits is, number one, is you draw nearer to the Lord. You're stronger in Christ. You got a story to tell. You're able to go back and uplift some people. You're able to go back and help some folks. You see, sometimes we got to go all the way around and up the hill and down the street just to be able to get to that victory. That situation could have only been, come on, talk about wilderness experiences. That situation could have been one of those where it could have been nipped in the bud quickly over a period of days. But some people, they don't see the enemy coming, or don't want to believe that the enemy is coming, or don't want to believe that animals can be used as bioterrorism agents, and in the spiritual realm, so can people. They don't want to believe it. And so it takes you longer to see the truth for what it is. Some folks, they will attack the very people who are there to help you. Come on. Some of us, we were attacked, whether spiritually, mentally, physically, or there was the plan to get us sexually. Some folks fell into that trap, had to confess sin and repent. Other ones didn't fall into that trap, but there was a temptation. Can I just say that the enemy doesn't want you to win? The enemy doesn't want you to win. Here's another example. You're at work. You're enjoying your day. You're doing real well. Let's say that you're into sales. Your sales are increasing. Some people are giving you some compliments because they like the way you handle things. You not only say you're going to take care of people, but you actually take care of people. But then there's that one that wants to nitpick, that one that doesn't want to give you a chance to resolve issues before they're sitting up there and they're writing a negative review. You at this point are saying, wait a minute, what have I done for this person to act this way? I've done this for them, I've done that, and yet they're still not satisfied. The enemy shows up in a way to get you off track, to distract you. You see, once again, you were doing well, right? You had folks speaking positively about you, but there's this streak, if you will, where now it's negative. Now here comes the challenge. But through all of this challenge, you are the type of individual that finds out more about the job. You learn more, you grow. There's attention that you get from people that you wouldn't have ordinarily got because they see that you know how to handle conflict. You know how to deal with this person. For some folks, though, the test shows up. They don't recognize it's a test and they freak out. I was doing good. I was helping everybody. And now they want to come here and start this mess with me. Well, you know what? I got something for them. Wait a minute. Now we see the real. Now we see a person who is on that struggle bus. You were used to winning. And now when the struggle comes, you're not used to it. You can't handle it. It's too hot in that kitchen. Am I speaking somebody's truth? God is there. God uses his people. There are those resources, but when a person doesn't want to just learn and grow and figure out some things, it once again takes them longer to get out of that situation, to get out of that fire. That bioterrorism agent, whether man, animal, beast, what have you, is not only there to kill or steal or attack, but is also there to refine you. I've said this in other audio. Like iron, that person, place, or thing is there to refine you. When you see that God is not working on your behalf and he seems distant, that is because there's something that you need to learn. There's something that you need to grow from. Some of us, we're used to running from enemies, right? We can run. Woo, we can get out of the way quickly, can't we? We know how to pack within record speed. Got the whole house packed up and everything on the truck. But there comes a point where you cannot run. There comes a point where sometimes you're not going to always be prepared, because remember now, the enemy likes to prey on the unsuspecting. I was prepared for that battle, for that war, but this go round I wasn't. Sometimes people aren't prepared, especially when it comes to international and national leadership. They're not prepared because, well, it hasn't gotten that bad yet. And besides, I don't want to spend the money. See, that is the wrong way to think. There are those individuals that will say, no, let's think about preventative maintenance. Let's run the drills. Let's practice. Some folks were warned a long time ago. These days were coming. But yet, no, we are going to handle things in the way that we think. And besides, we don't have the money. They always want to come back to that. Listen, when there is a threat of some sort, whether it's small, whether it's large, whether it's a pandemic or whatever, you are to be prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, monetarily. God uses his people to speak up. God uses his people to warn. And it's not too late. A lot of times it's not too late to fix something. It's not too late to prepare. It's not too late to let's get all arms together and go after that enemy. In the Bible, we see time and time again that leaders, they were instructed. They were instructed by the one true God to attack, to fight back, to take back what is theirs, or to show up and take something that's going to be theirs. You see, We have enemies, whether, once again, it's the enemy that shows up to attack the international leader or the enemy that shows up to attack you in your home. We got enemies. And the sooner you realize that, the better. And when you got the right system in place, because you done, let's say, been around the block and you done seen this one time and time again, you will overcome. For you who are listening today, if you don't have a plan, you need to start implementing a plan for not just that enemy that wants to show up and start some you know what in your life, but also that enemy that wants to attack you as well as your family and your neighbors and everything else. What are we going to do about this? What is government doing right now? Who can we connect ourselves with that's going to get the job done? Because there is a job ahead. Lazy people don't want to work. Lazy people want to sit back and just give me the results, give me the report. But when you know full well that there's an enemy, that's when you can just go ahead and let that lazy person fall by the wayside. That lazy person should not be getting special treatment. That lazy person should not be the one that's standing in the front line just because they got a title. No, lazy people should be way in the back somewhere. And when the enemy comes, they'll be the first that will end up getting caught under the fight, under the war, in the war. What have you. I'm not talking about being in the back of the line. I'm talking about being there wide open for the enemy to go ahead on and take them out. Have you ever watched a movie where you had one person who they were working hard to get some things done, right? Because they know that the enemy is going to show up and show out. So they are building up the fortress. They've got all their supplies or what have you. But that lazy person sitting up there and they're like doing their hair, or they're out there looking cute, or they're out there trying to, get some nookie or something. You know, we got an enemy. Yeah. Well, aren't you going to do something? Aren't you going to help out? No. Okay. So see, that one needs to be the first one that goes out in that movie. Bye. See you. You're done. The enemy shows up, kills them, slashes them, does whatever, you see. And to be quite honest, as morbid as it sounds, but that's a lot of times what happens when God is at war and folks are not ready for the war. They end up getting caught. They end up losing out. They end up going to their graves prematurely. God said, there's a war. I know that you all think that there's not a war, but there is a war. And there are those individuals who don't like you, don't appreciate you, don't respect you, think that you're spoiled brats. They don't like the God that you serve. They've marked you. You see. Let's talk some more about this enemy. We got that enemy that wants to find ways to belittle, to nitpick, to get the decent folk out, because the decent folk tend to tell, the decent folk tend to squawk, the decent folk tend to show up at meetings and list all that's wrong as well as solutions, and those solutions require work. And that one who doesn't want to be held accountable is going to once again find some issues with those who speak up, those who tell the truth. Now, how do you circumvent? How do you stand up against? How do you fight an enemy like this? First and foremost is that just as they've exposed you on whatever your weakness might be, or bringing up something from the past that has already been resolved, you got to be prepared to fight that enemy with the truth that is going on right now. Whatever that truth is concerning that enemy. You got to be able to catch that enemy in a lie. So that's where the documenting and the recording comes into play. You've got to be unavailable to that enemy. No, I'm not helping you. I'm not going to make life easier for you. I'm not going to be that one that is helping you look good. You see. I'm not going to be that one that's got your back any longer, because I see that when push comes to shove, you don't have my back. You can tell that a person don't like you, don't trust you, don't care for you, or feel like you're that one, once again, that's holding them accountable, because they're not going to fight like you fight. They're not going to have your back like you have their back. They're not going to go above and beyond. They're not going to support you on the things that you come up with, but yet they want you to support them on whatever they've come up with. There are those individuals that come to mind as I'm giving you this message, because the enemy is in them, working through them. And we can pray, and we can pray some more, of course, until we're blue in the face. But some folks, when they show you who they really are, and even though they might be having a good day every now and again, they still showed you who they really are when they told the lie, when they, said something about you, broke your confidence or whatever, you see. Like the animal who is injected with some type of substance or ate something that has a chemical or has some type of disease, and now that animal is running around, or that animal gets killed and somebody eats that animal, and now that thing that was in them is the enemy that attacks. That is just how Satan and his minions operate. And of course, they're covert. They're clever about what they do. They know how to come up with all sorts of stories to get you off their tail. They will blame, they will shame, they will have you running over here when they're up to their dirt over here. The enemy likes to create lots of chaos all at once, because in this way you're not paying attention to what's really happening behind the scenes. So there's the chaos that we just got over here. There's the chaos that faded out and we're no longer really interested in that. Okay, here comes some new chaos. And when there's so much chaos going on, prayer warriors are not on top of their game. When there's a lot of chaos going on, you're not able to hear from the Lord like you ought. When there's a lot of chaos going on, you are easily distracted from your work, and therefore you're not doing the best job, and you're not making the money that you could be making, possibly working somewhere else, because for now this is what's comfortable. And meanwhile the enemy is like, yeah, because I don't want you coming over here. You see. The chaos is used as a great excuse in so many different ways to not get some things done that really need to get done, while other things that don't need to get done. The unimportant becomes the important, and the important becomes the unimportant. The enemy likes to play mind games. So here you are. You see something that needs to get done, for instance, and the enemy comes up with all sorts of ways to distract you from getting some things done, because the enemy knows that you're going to get some benefit if you are able to get some things done. Case in point, a cure. Case in point, some healing. So many people knew that there was some foolishness going on as soon as these stories that didn't make any sense during certain period of times where really our focus was supposed to be on those other things. For instance, like an election year. There's always something that occurs. If you look at the pattern over the years during an election year, something major happens, something that just takes the public's attention off of the election. When there are those who want their favorites to win, they will create wag the dog scenarios, narratives. You're over there looking at the dog's tail wagging, but you're not really paying attention to the dog that's getting ready to bite you. Oh, he must be friendly because I see his tail wagging. Then he turns around and he bites you. He comes up with a news story. He comes up with something that is fun, that's appealing. He comes up with something that hurts you to the core. He comes up with anything and everything to keep you from chasing the story that really matters. Just like we've seen this sort of thing play out in media, I've got to remind some people, you got to pay attention to what's happening on the home front, at the workplace, at the civic group. Because sometimes these areas end up being infiltrated. Sometimes these areas end up being dealt with in a way that your mind is being sold into whatever the mass media story is. So if you got that one who's so focused in on anything and everything that comes out in mainstream media, they're going to start to tell you all of these things that's taking place while your attention is faced on that subject that your relative or coworker or brother or sister is telling you about. That once again, you're not paying attention to where your money is going. You're not paying attention to how, once again, they are affecting your rights in a negative sort of way. So this is one of those eye-opening messages, something for you to take into consideration before you're the one that is out there, or you've already been the one that has been out there being a part of the narrative, being a part of the story that is by design, being that one that's worried, caught up in the frenzy. When you are a child of God, you lean on the Lord. The Lord provides you with understanding. When you are a child of darkness, you lean on your own understanding and you're not thinking about the one true God. All you're thinking about is whatever somebody or some group has told you. Meanwhile, you are not seeing them as enemies because they're not going to present themselves as such. Instead, what they're going to do is present themselves as being a friend, as being someone who cares about you, someone who has the public's best interests at heart. It is all smoke and mirrors. Thank you as always for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to NM Enterprise 7. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. If you feel so moved to give, you are welcome to do so. And thank you in advance. To God be the glory.